The morning mist still clung to the narrow roads when my phone buzzed at 5:47 a.m. I was already dressed for my shift at the hospital, the smell of coffee mixing with the antiseptic scent that never quite washes out of my scrubs. But the voice on the other end wasn't the charge nurse calling about overtime. It was my neighbor, Mrs. Chen, her words tumbling over each other in panic. "Elias, your mother. She's on the kitchen floor. I heard Jasper barking through the walls. She won't wake up." The coffee mug slipped from my hands, ceramic shattering against the worn linoleum. My EMT training kicked in before the fear could paralyze me. I grabbed my keys and ran. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The drive to Mom's house felt endless, though it couldn't have been more than 8 minutes. Pine trees blurred past my windshield, their dark branches reaching across the road like worried hands. I found her exactly where Mrs. Chen said she'd be, sprawled beside the kitchen table, Jasper whimpering and nudging her shoulder with his graying muzzle. Her face was pale as morning fog, lips tinged blue around the edges. "Mom," I knelt beside her, fingers finding the pulse point at her throat. Weak, but steady. "I'm here. I'm getting you help." She stirred slightly as I lifted her, her weight feeling impossibly fragile in my arms. "Elias?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "The scorecards. In my desk. Don't talk, Mom. Save your strength." I carried her to my car, Jasper following close behind, his dark eyes reflecting my own terror. The ER at Mercy General knew me. I'd been working in medical records there for 2 years while finishing my EMT certification. But walking through those automatic doors with my mother unconscious in my arms was different. I wasn't Elias the clerk anymore. I was just a son, drowning in helplessness. "We need Dr. Liang," I called to the triage nurse, my voice cracking. "Cardiac event, probable heart failure." They whisked Mom away on a gurney, and I followed until a nurse gently but firmly guided me to the waiting area. That's when I saw him. Victor Reyes, my father, striding through the entrance in his pristine golf shirt, glancing irritably at his expensive watch. "Where is she?" he demanded, not even looking at me. "Room 3. They're stabilizing her." I studied his face, searching for the fear I felt clawing at my chest. Instead, I found only annoyance. "Well, how long will this take?" He adjusted his golf cap. "The club championship starts at 8, and I'm paired with the mayor." The words hit me like ice water. "Dad, she collapsed. Her heart." He's always been dramatic about her health. Half the time these episodes are just stress. I stared at him, my hands shaking with more than just fear now. In that sterile waiting room with the sound of monitors beeping beyond the doors where my mother fought for her life, I realized something that would change everything. My father saw her collapse not as a crisis, but as an inconvenience. And that was only the beginning. Dr. Naomi Liang emerged from the treatment room 20 minutes later, her surgical scrubs wrinkled and her expression grave. I knew that look. I'd seen it in the records of dozens of patients whose families received bad news. But hearing it about your own mother makes the sterile hospital air feel impossible to breathe. "She needs immediate surgery," Dr. Liang said, her voice steady but urgent. "There's significant blockage in her left anterior descending artery. We're looking at a widowmaker if we don't operate within the next 2 hours." My father didn't even look up from his phone. "Can't it wait until this evening? Dr. Martinez usually handles our family's procedures, and he won't be available until after 6. "Mr. Reyes, your wife could die." Dr. Liang's words cut through the waiting room like a scalpel. "This isn't about convenience or preferred physicians. This is about time." Victor finally glanced up, irritation flickering across his features. "Well, what's the rush? She's stable now, isn't she? Grace has always been prone to anxiety. Half the time these episodes are just stress." I felt something crack inside my chest. "Dad, she collapsed. She wasn't breathing properly when I found her."
"You're not a doctor, Elias." He stood, smoothing down his golf shirt. "I have medical power of attorney. I know what's best for my wife." He turned to Dr. Liang with that practiced smile he used with insurance clients. "We'll schedule the surgery for tomorrow morning. Give her the night to rest." Dr. Liang's jaw tightened. Mr. Reyes, I strongly advise against any delay. The risks compound exponentially with each hour. And I'm sure your hospital would love the overtime billing. Victor's smile turned cold. But I'm not some frightened family member you can pressure into unnecessary procedures. We'll wait for Dr. Martinez. He signed the refusal forms with the same flourish he used for insurance policies, then checked his watch again. I need to get to the club. Call me if anything actually urgent develops. He paused at my shoulder, lowering his voice. Try not to be so emotional about this, son. Your mother needs us to think clearly. After he left, the waiting room felt hollowed out, like the aftermath of a storm. Rhea Patel, Mom's primary nurse, appeared beside me with a chart in her hands. I'm documenting every minute of this delay, she said quietly, her dark eyes fierce with suppressed anger. Your father just signed your mother's death warrant, and he did it to make his tea time. I stared at the forms Victor had signed, his signature bold and confident across the bottom. Legal authority, medical power of attorney. Words that meant my mother's life hung in the balance of his golf schedule. There has to be something we can do, I whispered. Rhea's expression softened with sympathy, but her voice remained firm. Not while he holds the paperwork, honey. Not unless we can prove he's acting against her best interests. That word prove echoed in my mind as I walked back toward the records office. If there was evidence of anything, I'd find it buried in the files where I spent my days. I just had to know where to look. The records office was quieter than a morgue at 7 in the morning. I sat surrounded by towers of manila folders, my mother's files spread across the desk like pieces of a puzzle I couldn't solve. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting everything in that harsh hospital glow that makes even healthy people look sick. Grace Morales Reyes, patient ID 44728891. Insurance carrier Cascade Premier Health, Victor's company. I'd seen hundreds of files like this, but now every line felt personal. Every code, every checkbox, every bureaucratic abbreviation represented a piece of my mother's life reduced to data points. And buried in those data points, something felt wrong. The insurance rider caught my attention first. A concierge care enhancement plan I'd never seen before. It promised premium treatment timing and strategic care coordination. The language was slick, professional, and completely meaningless, but the fine print made my blood run cold. Benefits triggered upon verified catastrophic decline events. I pulled up the hospital database and cross-referenced the code. 17 other patients in the last year, all with the same rider, all with delayed care authorizations, all with families who'd complained about treatment postponements. My hands shook as I printed out the list. Mrs. Elena Vasquez, delayed cardiac surgery, died waiting for optimal surgeon availability. Mr. James Chen, post-stroke intervention, permanent disability. Sarah Kim, deferred cancer treatment, stage progression while consulting specialists. Jesus Christ, I whispered, staring at the pattern emerging from the pages. This wasn't negligence. This was a system. Dr. Liang appeared in the doorway, her surgical cap pushed back, exhaustion etched in every line of her face. Your mother is stable for now, but her enzyme levels are climbing. We're running out of time, Elias. I showed her the printouts. Look at this. Every delay, every postponement, they're all connected to the same insurance plan, my father's plan. She studied the documents, her expression growing darker with each page. Catastrophic decline benefits. Jesus, Elias, do you know what this means? Tell me. The insurance pays out larger settlements when patients deteriorate to critical status. Your father makes more money if people get sicker before they're treated. Her voice was barely controlled fury. He's not just neglecting your mother's care, he's profiting from it. The revelation hit me like a physical blow. I thought of Victor checking his watch, dismissing Mom's collapse as drama, signing those refusal forms with practiced ease. How many times had he done this before? How many families had he destroyed with his pen? My phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Chen. Jasper won't eat, just sits by Grace's chair waiting. The image of that loyal old greyhound keeping vigil broke something loose in my chest. Mom had rescued Jasper from the racing tracks, a broken-down dog nobody wanted, nursing him back to trust and love. She'd seen something worth saving in him, just like she'd seen something worth documenting in those mysterious scorecards she'd mentioned.
I need to go home, I told Dr. Liang. There's something Mom tried to tell me before she lost consciousness. Elias, whatever you're thinking, she knew. The certainty settled in my bones like winter cold. She figured it out before any of us did. Mom's house felt like a held breath when I walked through the front door. Jasper lifted his head from his bed by the window, tail giving a half-hearted wag before his dark eyes returned to watching the driveway, waiting for her to come home. I found myself standing in her kitchen, staring at the spot where I'd discovered her collapsed hours earlier. The coffee cup she'd been reaching for still sat on the counter, cold and forgotten. Everything about the scene whispered of interrupted routine. Her reading glasses folded beside the morning paper, her medication organizer with Tuesday's pills still waiting. "The scorecards," I murmured, remembering her whispered words, "in my desk." Her small writing desk sat in the corner of the living room, a piece she'd inherited from her grandmother in El Salvador. I'd always known it was off-limits, Mom's private space where she paid bills and wrote letters to relatives back home. My hands trembled as I opened the bottom drawer. Golf scorecards. Hundreds of them, rubber-banded in neat stacks dating back 3 years. At first glance, they looked like any golfer's collection. Hole-by-hole scores, dates, weather conditions. But Mom didn't golf. She'd never set foot on a course in her life. I pulled out a random card from last month. Pine Ridge Country Club, Victor's usual haunt. But the scoring made no sense. Hole 3 was marked with CPT 93458, a number that made my pulse quicken. In medical records, that was the billing code for cardiac catheterization. My hands moved faster now, pulling out more cards. Hole 7, DRG 280, acute myocardial infarction. Hole 12, Rev 72, revenue code for coronary care units. Each scorecard was a map connecting golf holes to medical billing codes with Mom's precise handwriting. Jasper appeared at my feet, nudging a fallen scorecard toward me with his nose. This one was different, more recent, dated just 2 weeks ago. Mom's writing was shakier here, as if her hands had been trembling. Across the top, she'd written a single word: insurance. Below it, in her careful script, Victor meets P. Carr every third Thursday. Tournament payouts equal patient delays. Hole 9 is always marked when someone dies. The room spun around me. P. Carr, Penelope Carr, the country club's foundation director. I'd heard Victor mention her name dozens of times, always with that particular tone he used when discussing profitable relationships. I spread the scorecards across Mom's coffee table, patterns emerging like constellations in a dark sky. Each tournament corresponded to a cluster of delayed care authorizations. Each marked hole aligned with a specific type of medical crisis. The charity events Victor claimed to organize weren't charity at all. They were scorecards for human suffering. Mom had been tracking it all. Every handshake, every delayed surgery, every family torn apart by Victor's calculated greed. She'd turned his own obsession against him, using golf scorecards to map his corruption because she knew he'd never think to look there. "You brilliant, brave woman," I whispered, touching her careful notations. She'd been building a case, one scorecard at a time, waiting for the right moment to act. But her heart had given out before she could finish what she'd started. Now it was up to me to read her final score. Pine Ridge Country Club sat like a green jewel against the backdrop of cedar forests, its manicured fairways rolling away from the clubhouse in perfect waves. I'd never belonged here, this world of handshakes and membership fees that cost more than most people's annual salaries. But Mom's scorecards had given me a roadmap, and I needed someone who knew the terrain.
I found Mateo Alvarado raking sand traps on the 7th hole, his movements precise and methodical. He was younger than I'd expected, maybe 35, with weathered hands and intelligent eyes that missed nothing. I'd tracked him down through the club's employee directory, a name that appeared on work orders dating back 5 years. "Excuse me," I called, walking across the perfectly trimmed grass. "Are you Tio?" He looked up warily, taking in my hospital scrubs and the folder of scorecards tucked under my arm. "Jesus," he whispered, setting down his rake. "You figured it out. You knew?" Tio glanced around the empty course, then gestured for me to follow him toward the maintenance shed. Inside, surrounded by fertilizer bags and golf cart parts, he pulled out a worn notebook from his toolbox.
"I studied accounting before my family needed me to work," he said, flipping through pages covered with numbers and dates. "Couldn't help but notice patterns. The charity tournaments your dad organizes. They're not raising money for medical research. They're celebration parties." "Celebrating what?" "Payouts." His voice was bitter. "Every time someone dies after delayed care, there's a tournament within the week. Prize money comes from something called the Catastrophic Care Foundation, which is just Penelope Carr laundering insurance kickbacks through the club." I showed him Mom's coded scorecards, watching his eyes widen as he connected the holes to billing codes. She figured out the whole system. "Your mother came here once," Teo said quietly, "about 6 months ago. Sat in the parking lot for an hour, just watching. I thought she was waiting for your father, but now—" He shook his head. "She was gathering intelligence." "Will you help me expose this?" Teo was quiet for a long moment, staring at his notebook. "You know what you're asking. These people own half the city. They'll destroy you, destroy both of us if we cross them. They're already destroying people. My mother is dying in a hospital bed because my father chose a golf tournament over her life." I spread Mom's scorecards across his workbench like evidence in a trial. "How many others are there? How many families have been torn apart so Victor and Penelope could celebrate their profits on this course?" He studied the cards, his jaw tightening with each connection he traced. Finally, he opened a filing cabinet and pulled out a box. "Tournament registration forms. 3 years' worth. Every celebration party, every payout party." I kept copies. As we compared his records to Mom's scorecards, the full scope of the conspiracy emerged. Dozens of delayed treatments, each one triggering insurance payments that flowed through the foundation into tournament prizes and club improvements. A machine of suffering disguised as charity golf. "We need to move fast," Teo said, checking his watch. "Your father has another tournament scheduled for this weekend. If your mother dies before then—" "She won't." The words came out harder than I intended. "I'm going to stop this tonight." The hospital's conference room felt like a courtroom at 9 p.m., fluorescent lights casting harsh shadows across the polished table. Sister Bernadette O'Malley, Bertie O'Malley, sat at one end, her nun's habit somehow making her appear more formidable than any lawyer. Counselor Avery Dunn arranged papers with methodical precision, her expression neutral but alert. I'd never requested an emergency ethics hearing before. In 2 years of medical records work, I'd seen the process from the outside, usually bureaucratic formalities that rubber-stamped decisions already made. But tonight felt different. Tonight, my mother's life hung in the balance of bureaucracy. The emergency petition challenges the medical power of attorney held by Victor Reyes. The petitioner alleges abuse of proxy authority resulting in life-threatening delays of care. The hospital conference room door slammed open. Victor stormed in, still wearing his golf shirt from the day's practice round, fury radiating from every stride. "This is ridiculous. My own son undermining family authority over some emotional outburst?" "Please take a seat, Mr. Reyes."
Sister Bertie said calmly. "We're here to review the facts, not family dynamics." I spread Mom's scorecards across the table like a dealer showing cards. These document a systematic pattern of delayed care tied to insurance fraud. My father has been using his medical power of attorney to trigger catastrophic decline clauses that benefit him financially. Victor's face flushed red. "Those are golf scorecards, for God's sake. My wife doesn't even play golf." I agreed, but she understood numbers, CPT codes, DRG classifications, revenue markers, all of them corresponding to delayed treatments and patient deaths. Whole 9 marked every time someone dies. Waiting for care you postponed. Dr. Liang entered with Rhea Patel close behind, both carrying thick patient files. "I can testify that Mr. Victor Reyes has repeatedly refused urgent surgical interventions." Dr. Liang set down her evidence. "Tonight alone, his wife has suffered 2 additional cardiac episodes while he maintains his refusal." "She's dramatic," Victor snapped. "Grace has always—" "Mr. Reyes," Sister Bertie's voice cut through his words like a blade. "A woman is dying 3 floors above us. Your wife is dying. Help me understand why golf scorecards matter more than surgical surgery." Rhea stepped forward with her meticulously kept charts. "I've documented every refusal, every delay, every excuse. Pattern recognition isn't just for medical diagnosis, it works for malpractice too." Avery studied the evidence, her expression growing grimmer with each page. "Mr. Reyes, these documents suggest you've deliberately delayed care to maximize insurance payouts. That constitutes abuse of proxy authority." "You can't prove intent," Victor said, but his voice had lost its earlier confidence. "I was ensuring quality care, waiting for the right surgeon."
At 2 a.m. on a Tuesday, I interrupted, when Mom's enzymes were critical and Dr. Liang was standing ready to operate? The room fell silent except for the hum of ventilation and the distant beeping of monitors from the floors above. Sister Bertie looked from the scorecards to Victor's face, reading something there that made her nod slowly. "The evidence is compelling," she said finally. "Mr. Reyes, your medical power of attorney is hereby suspended pending investigation. Elias, your mother's care decisions now rest with you." Victor shot to his feet. "This is a family matter, not some crusade for hospital ethics. You people don't understand." "I understand that my mother is dying while you count money," I said, standing to face him. "That understanding ends tonight." The gavel fell like a judge's verdict. Mom's life was finally back in the hands of someone who would choose her over a golf tournament. The surgical suite doors swung shut behind Dr. Liang at 10:43 p.m., sealing my mother away from me in a sterile world of monitors and scalpels. I pressed my palms against the observation window, watching the controlled choreography of life-saving work, gloved hands moving with practiced precision, machines breathing for her, keeping her heart beating while they repaired what neglect had nearly destroyed. "She's strong," Rhea said quietly, appearing at my shoulder with 2 cups of coffee that would grow cold and untouched. "Your mother's been fighting this longer than any of us knew." The waiting room felt cavernous at this hour. Most of the day shift families had gone home, leaving behind empty chairs and forgotten magazines. I found myself thinking about all the other sons and daughters who'd sat in these same seats, watching their parents disappear behind those same doors, trusting strangers to undo the damage that bureaucracy and greed had allowed to fester. Victor paced near the far wall like a caged animal, his earlier fury replaced by something that looked almost like panic. Every few minutes he'd check his phone, probably calculating how this delay would affect tomorrow's tea time schedule. The man who'd spent the morning worried about his tea time was now watching his carefully constructed world unravel in real time. Mrs. Chen arrived with Jasper on his leash.
the old greyhound's eyes searching the room before settling on the surgical doors with an understanding that broke my heart. Dogs know things we pretend we don't. They feel the weight of absence, the shape of fear, the texture of hope hanging by threads. "I brought him because he wouldn't eat," Mrs. Chen explained, settling into the chair beside me. "He keeps looking for her." I knelt down and scratched behind Jasper's ears, feeling the tremor in his thin frame. "She's going to come back," I whispered, needing to hear the words as much as he did. "She has to." The surgery stretched into its third hour. I replayed every memory I had of Mom, teaching me to fold fitted sheets in her methodical way, translating medical bills for elderly neighbors who couldn't navigate the English bureaucracy, staying up all night when I had pneumonia at 14, her cool hand on my forehead and her voice humming old lullabies from El Salvador. She had been investigating Victor for years, I realized now. All those quiet evenings when she'd sit at her little desk, sorting through papers I'd assumed were household bills. She had been building a case with the patience of someone who understood that truth sometimes has to be gathered one scorecard at a time. At 1:17 a.m., Dr. Liang emerged from the surgical suite, pulling off her surgical cap to reveal hair dampened with sweat and exhaustion. Her expression was carefully neutral, the face doctors wear when they're carrying news too fragile for hallways. "She's stable," she said, and the waiting room exhaled collectively. "Triple bypass. Successful. But, Elias, if you'd waited another few hours..." She didn't need to finish. We all understood the mathematics of time and tissue death, the narrow margin between intervention and loss. "She's going to recover?" I said, making it both question and prayer. Dr. Liang smiled, the first genuine smile I'd seen from her all day. "Your mother is tougher than her heart condition. She's going to be fine." 3 days after Mom's surgery, I was restocking patient files when Penelope Carr walked into the records office like she owned the building. Everything about her screamed expensive, from her tailored blazer to the way she held herself as if the world existed for her convenience. I recognized her from the country club's charity event photos, always positioned next to the largest donation checks. "Mr. Reyes, I believe we need to talk." "About what?" "About your unfortunate misunderstanding regarding your father's medical decisions, and about certain documents that have gone missing from private property."
The golf scorecards. Mom's evidence was locked in my apartment safe, but apparently word had gotten around. "I don't know what you mean." "Of course you don't." Her laugh sounded like breaking crystal. "Just as you don't know that accusing respected community members of insurance fraud carries serious legal consequences. Slander, defamation, interference with business relationships. The Pine Ridge Foundation has excellent attorneys who specialize in protecting our members from overzealous family disputes." I kept filing charts, letting her words wash over me like background noise. "My mother almost died because my father delayed her surgery for a golf tournament. That's not slander. That's documentation. Your mother had a medical episode. Your father made prudent decisions about her care timeline. The fact that you've chosen to reframe natural family dynamics as some conspiracy theory suggests you might benefit from grief counseling." The casual dismissal of Mom's near death as natural family dynamics made my hands shake with suppressed rage. But before I could respond, my cousin Diego burst through the office door, video camera in hand, and excitement radiating from every pore. "Elias, you didn't tell me you were taking on the country club mafia." He swung the camera toward Penelope, who recoiled like a vampire facing sunlight. "Miss Carr, right? I'm Diego Reyes, independent filmmaker. Want to comment on the insurance fraud allegations?" "Turn that thing off immediately," Penelope snapped. But Diego was already recording her reaction. "So you're not denying that the Pine Ridge Foundation launders insurance payouts through charity tournaments, that patient deaths are celebrated with golf prizes?" Penelope stood so fast her chair rolled backward. "This conversation is over.
Elias, you have 48 hours to return private property and issue a public apology, or our attorneys will be in touch. After she left, Diego grinned at his camera display. Man, she did not like being filmed. This is going to make great footage. Diego, what are you doing here? Mom told me what happened to Tia Grace. I've been following the story. This is huge, Primo. Insurance fraud, medical malpractice, country club corruption. This is documentary gold. He showed me his camera's memory card. I've been interviewing people all week, other families affected by delayed care, hospital staff who've been afraid to speak up. Your mom's scorecards aren't the only evidence. That evening, Diego's preliminary clips went live on social media. Grainy footage of Pine Ridge Country Club, interviews with families who'd lost loved ones to delayed treatments, and Penelope Carr's furious reaction to being questioned. Within hours, local news stations were calling. The story was spreading faster than Victor could contain it, and I realized we'd moved beyond family disputes into something much larger. Mom's quiet investigation had uncovered a network of institutional corruption, and now the whole city was watching. But Penelope was right about one thing. They had excellent attorneys, and they weren't going to surrender their profitable scheme without a fight. The Pine Ridge Country Club's main dining room had never hosted anything like this. Folding chairs packed the space normally reserved for charity galas and member celebrations, filled with faces I'd never expected to see in this temple of privilege. Hospital workers still in scrubs, families clutching medical bills, reporters with notebooks and cameras. Diego had turned a medical ethics complaint into a public reckoning. Victor sat at the club's executive table, flanked by Penelope Carr and two men in expensive suits who radiated lawyer energy. His face had the gray pallor of someone watching his carefully constructed world collapse in real time. Across the room, Mr. Halverson from the Insurance Compliance Office shuffled through a thick stack of documents, his expression growing grimmer with each page. This forum was called to address allegations of systematic medical care delays connected to insurance fraud. Mr. Elias Reyes has requested the opportunity to present evidence. I stood, my hands steady despite the weight of 300 pairs of eyes watching me. Mom's scorecards were spread across the podium like a dealer's final hand. 3 years of meticulous documentation that would either vindicate her quiet investigation or destroy what was left of our family. My mother, Grace Morales Reyes, doesn't play golf. But she understood that games have rules and someone was cheating. I read from her careful handwriting. April 15th, Pine Ridge Tournament, Hole 3, CPT 93458, cardiac catheterization delayed. Hole 7, patient died waiting. Hole 9, celebration party. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Victor shifted uncomfortably, his lawyer whispering urgent advice. She documented every connection between charity tournaments and patient deaths, every delayed surgery that triggered catastrophic decline insurance payouts, every celebration disguised as charity golf. I held up card after card, reading her coded entries like a sports commentator calling a game. Mrs. Vasquez, delayed cardiac surgery, died waiting. Hole 9 marked, tournament the following Thursday.
The golf scorecards. Mom's evidence was locked in my apartment safe, but apparently word had gotten around. I don't know what you mean. Of course you don't. Her laugh sounded like breaking crystal. Just as you don't know that accusing respected community members of insurance fraud carries serious legal consequences. Slander, defamation, interference with business relationships. The Pine Ridge Foundation has excellent attorneys who specialize in protecting our members from overzealous family disputes. I kept filing charts, letting her words wash over me like background noise. My mother almost died because my father delayed her surgery for a golf tournament. That's not slander, that's documentation. Your mother had a medical episode. Your father made prudent decisions about her care timeline. The fact that you've chosen to reframe natural family dynamics as some conspiracy theory suggests you might benefit from grief counseling.
The casual dismissal of Mom's near death as natural family dynamics made my hands shake with suppressed rage. But before I could respond, my cousin Diego burst through the office door, video camera in hand and excitement radiating from every pore. "Elias, you didn't tell me you were taking on the country club mafia." He swung the camera toward Penelope, who recoiled like a vampire facing sunlight. "Miss Carr, right? I'm Diego Reyes, independent filmmaker. Want to comment on the insurance fraud allegations?" "Turn that thing off immediately," Penelope snapped, but Diego was already recording her reaction. "So you're not denying that the Pine Ridge Foundation launders insurance payouts through charity tournaments, that patient deaths are celebrated with golf prizes?" Penelope stood so fast her chair rolled backward. "This conversation is over. Elias, you have 48 hours to return private property and issue a public apology, or our attorneys will be in touch." After she left, Diego grinned at his camera's display. Man, she did not like being filmed. This is going to make great footage. "Diego, what are you doing here?" "Mom told me what happened to Dia Grace. I've been following the story. This is huge, Primo. Insurance fraud, medical malpractice, country club corruption. This is documentary gold." He showed me his camera's memory card. "I've been interviewing people all week. Other families affected by delayed care, hospital staff who've been afraid to speak up. Your mom's scorecards aren't the only evidence." That evening, Diego's preliminary clips went live on social media. Grainy footage of Pine Ridge Country Club, interviews with families who'd lost loved ones to delayed treatments, and Penelope Carr's furious reaction to being questioned. Within hours, local news stations were calling. The story was spreading faster than Victor could contain it, and I realized we'd moved beyond family disputes into something much larger. Mom's quiet investigation had uncovered a network of institutional corruption, and now the whole city was watching. But Penelope was right about one thing. They had excellent attorneys, and they weren't going to surrender their profitable scheme without a fight. The Pine Ridge Country Club's main dining room had never hosted anything like this. Folding chairs packed the space normally reserved for charity galas and member celebrations, filled with faces I'd never expected to see in this temple of privilege. Hospital workers still in scrubs, families clutching medical bills, reporters with notebooks and cameras. Diego had turned a medical ethics complaint into a public reckoning. Victor sat at the club's executive table, flanked by Penelope Carr and two men in expensive suits that radiated lawyer energy. His face had the gray pallor of someone watching his carefully constructed world collapse in real time. Across the room, Mr. Halverson from the Insurance Compliance Office shuffled through a thick stack of documents, his expression growing grimmer with each page. This forum was called to address allegations of systematic medical care delays connected to insurance fraud. Mr. Elias Reyes has requested the opportunity to present evidence. I stood, my hands steadied despite the weight of 300 pairs of eyes watching me. Mom's scorecards were spread across the podium like a dealer's final hand. 3 years of meticulous documentation that would either vindicate her quiet investigation or destroy what was left of our family. My mother, Grace Morales, doesn't play golf, but she understood that games have rules and someone was cheating. I read from her careful handwriting. April 15th, Pine Ridge Tournament. Hole 3. CPT 93458. Cardiac catheterization delayed. Hole 7. Patient died, waiting. Hole 9. Celebration party. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Victor shifted uncomfortably, his lawyer whispering urgent advice. She documented every connection between charity tournaments and patient deaths, every delayed surgery that triggered catastrophic decline insurance payouts, every celebration disguised as charity golf. I held up card after card, reading her coded entries like a sports commentator calling a game. Mrs. Vasquez, delayed cardiac surgery, died waiting. Hole 9 marked. Tournament the following Thursday.